I was just wrapping up my shift at the coffee shop. The sun had set, and the quiet felt heavier. I had been thinking about my grandmother, hoping she was taking her meds. This small town once seemed charming, with everything looking like a scene from a movie. But now, something about it felt off. A few days ago, I overheard two old women talking about a girl who went missing years ago. Their whispers tugged at my curiosity. I leaned in closer while I wiped the counter, trying to catch any more of their words. I heard mentions of a pact and darkness. It sent chills down my spine. I didn't understand. I felt so drawn to their conversation, yet scared at the same time. I just wanted to ignore it and go home, but things kept happening. One morning, a cup moved just a little on its own. I froze. I thought it might be a trick of the light or my imagination. Later, I saw a shadow dart past the window. I told myself it was the wind, but it didn't feel right. A knot formed in my stomach every time I thought about going back to work. I met Mr. Wood, a neighbor who painted portraits of missing people. I was curious and visited him one day. His paintings felt alive, their eyes watching me. I felt cold when I recognized one. It was the girl from the coffee shop story. I quickly left his house but couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. At night, whispers floated outside my window. I'd go to check but found nothing. My heart raced when I remembered the women at the coffee shop. I kept wondering about that girl. What had happened to her? What was this town hiding from me? I wanted to run, but I also wanted to understand. Then came that night. The clock tower chimed midnight. The hour felt heavy. My door creaked open. I gasped. I didn't remember leaving it unlocked. I tiptoed down the hall, drawn by a force I couldn't explain. The coffee shop felt different, as if it came alive at night. Shadows danced and the air was thick. I heard a soft voice call my name. I was frozen in fear. I wanted to turn back, but something drew me closer. I stepped inside. That's when I saw her. The missing girl stood near the counter. She was pale and looked so sad. Her hair flowed like a dark shadow. But her eyes, they were filled with silent screams. I felt my heart drop. She reached out, and I saw something around her neck. A gold locket, cracked and worn. It looked familiar. In that moment, I felt all the stories the town was hiding crash over me like cold waves. I wanted to run, but I was rooted in place. And then she whispered, "Help me." The weight of her words settled in my chest. It was like the darkness of the town had grabbed me. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. I just stared into her haunted eyes. I realized then I would never be the same again. The poor girl sold to the devil, trapped in a secret I couldn't escape. I stood there, paralyzed by the girl's plea. "Help me," echoed in my mind, but how could I help someone who had vanished years ago? What could I possibly do? My feet finally moved, inching closer, still unsure if I was dreaming. I could see her eyes. They seemed to swell with hope and despair all at once. "Why?" I croaked, barely forming the words. "What do you need?" She pointed to the locket. I stepped closer and my heart raced. It felt like the air crackled around us. I could see it now. The locket was engraved with initials, just like the ones I had seen in Mr. Wood's paintings. Suddenly, everything felt too big for my mind to grasp. Before I could dwell on it, the door slammed shut behind me. I jumped, spinning around to find the coffee shop deserted. An icy chill crept up my spine. I glanced back at her, but she looked more frightened than ever. "Please," she whispered again, her voice trembling, "find the truth." Just then, a loud crash echoed from the back room. My heart raced. The urge to flee surged through me, but I couldn't abandon her. Not now. I needed to know what happened. I turned slowly, wanting to see what had caused the noise. I took a deep breath and headed toward the sound. The back room was dimly lit, the shadows lurking like monsters in the corners. As I entered, I stumbled over something on the floor. I bent down to see an old journal, pages yellowed and crinkled. When I opened it, the first entry made my stomach knot. It spoke of the missing girl and mentioned a curse, a group of girls tied to dark forces. The more I read, the more I felt my chest tighten. This wasn't just about one disappearance. It was about a history of secrets buried in this little town. I heard a soft rustling and I swung around. The girl was gone. Panic gripped me as I called out her name, but the only reply was silence. My heart raced again. It was like she had vanished into thin air, and I was left with the weight of her unfulfilled plea. Just as I was about to bolt out, I noticed something shiny in the corner of the room. I stepped closer, and my breath caught in my throat. It was another locket, just like the one she had worn. I picked it up carefully, the metal cold against my skin. The initials matched, and something about it felt so wrong. Then it hit me. The words from the old women came rushing back. A pact. I dropped the locket and it clattered to the floor. The implications crashed over me. This was bigger than I thought. Suddenly the lights flickered, and I felt a rush of air pass through me, carrying a feeling of deep despair. I turned, and there she was again, her face now twisted with pain. "You have to break it," she cried, "before it takes anyone else." I felt a chill touch my neck, and a shadow loomed behind her. In that moment I realized I was in over my head. Everything was spiraling, and I needed to figure out how to help her. Who else was involved? But as darkness surrounded us, I knew time was running out. I looked into her eyes and nodded. I would find a way to break the curse, even if it meant facing whatever it was that hunted us both. I stumbled back in fear as I watched the shadow grow. It danced in the corner, flickering like a candle's flame, teasing me with its uncertainty. I couldn't shake the feeling that it harbored a malicious intent. My instincts screamed at me to flee, but how could I leave without learning the truth? "That locket," I said, my voice shaking. "What does it mean?" She looked at me with wide, pleading eyes. "You must understand, they didn't just lose their lives, they lost their identities. The locket is a key. You have to find the others. Only then can we change what happened." I nodded, despite the cold sweat coating my skin. The thought of tracking down more of these cursed trinkets filled me with dread. I had no idea how many there might be, but I also felt a surge of determination. I couldn't let her down. The lights flickered again, more violently this time. When they blinked back on, she was gone once more. I felt the rush of air again, and this time it carried a whisper, a name. "Lucy?" I spun around, trying to decipher the source. My heart raced, but a sudden thought struck me. Lucy. I remembered that name from the journal. She was one of the girls who had disappeared. I had to find her. I gathered my nerves and bolted back into the coffee shop. I scanned the walls, searching for any hint of a connection. Then I spotted a bulletin board filled with old photographs and flyers. I rushed over, hoping for a clue. There she was, smiling back at me from an old-school picture. Lucy Johnson. The photos below chronicled a series of events, a school play, a winter festival, each moment hinting at a life cut short too soon. But one flyer caught my eye. It was a missing persons notice with a date that took my breath away. It was the day after she disappeared. As I read it, the door creaked open, and a figure stepped inside. My heart dropped. It was Mr. Wood, the artist who had painted the portraits I'd seen. His face tightened when he saw me. "You shouldn't be here," he warned, glancing over his shoulder as though fearful of being followed. "You don't know what you're meddling with." "Is this about the girls? The curse?" I couldn't keep the desperation from my voice. He took a step closer, scanning the room nervously. "You need to leave now. The truth isn't what you think." I felt the urgency. I had been handed a piece of the puzzle, but I could sense a larger game at play. But I have to help them. I have to find Lucy. He hesitated, but then his expression softened, if only slightly. You will only put yourself in danger. There are forces out there you can't understand. This town—" He trailed off, the weight of his words hanging in the air. That's when I saw it, the shadow creeping through the back door, swirling with intent. My instincts flared, warning me I was running out of time. "Mr. Wood!" I shouted, but it was too late. The shadow lunged, and everything went dark, pulling me into a void of uncertainty. I gasped as the darkness swallowed me whole. It was as if I had been plunged into cold water, the weight of it pressing down on me. It was the strangest sensation, like being alive but cut off from the world. I could neither see nor hear anything. Panic clawed at my chest. "Help!" I cried, my voice swallowed by the void. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. Moments felt like hours as I struggled against the stillness. Suddenly I felt a jolt. A chorus of whispers surrounded me, echoing in the dark. "Find us. Save us." The voices were faint, yet insistent. Each syllable sent shivers down my spine. Then, in an instant, the oppressive silence shattered. I stumbled backward into the coffee shop, blinking against the harsh fluorescent lights. The atmosphere was thick and strange. Mr. Wood was still there, but now he looked different, more fragile, as if the weight of years pressed down on him. "You shouldn't have done that," he said, his voice shaking. "You've opened a door." "What do you mean? Lucy's not the only one." His words hung heavily in the air. "The other girls, they are tied to their locket in ways you cannot comprehend." I felt a sense of dread wash over me. What do I need to do? He hesitated again, eyes darting to the door, then back to me. "The locket must be found. You must piece together their stories. Each one is connected. Each girl is waiting in the shadows." The shadows. I recalled the photos, the whispers, and every chill that had woken me in the nights leading to this moment. But where do I even start? Just then, a split in the shadows at the far side of the coffee shop caught my eye. A thin, crimson line traced the floor, leading away from me. My stomach knotted, but I felt an urge to follow, a pull that I couldn't ignore. "Don't! You don't know where that leads." Mr. Wood's voice came out sharp, desperately trying to grab my attention. My breath quickened, but something inside sparked with determination. The need to rescue these girls, this was bigger than me. I can't just stand here. I took a step toward the divide in darkness, drawn by an inexplicable force, when the shadows thickened and formed a figure. A girl, her features drifting in and out of focus. It was Lucy. "Help me," she whispered, the sorrow in her eyes haunting. "Lucy, where are you?" Before I could grasp what was happening, the crimson line pulsed fiercely. I reeled back as the figure began to fade, her voice lingering in the air, echoing as if trapped in a vast expanse. "You have to find the others. Time is running out." With those last words, the room fell silent, and the energy shifted. I was left with a burning question. What had I unleashed? As the shadows receded, I turned to Mr. Wood, trying to steady my breath. "I'm not backing down. I'm going after her." He seemed to understand the resolve in me. "Then you must act fast. The longer you wait, the stronger they'll become." Just then my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, glancing at the screen. A notification flashed, an article about another missing girl, but the name seemed familiar. I found out who it was, but that just made it worse. I sat frozen for a moment, staring at the screen. The article's title screamed at me. "The poor girl sold to the devil in a small town. What happened next still baffles me." My mind raced. I recognized the name. Claire. She had vanished last summer right in our neighborhood. No, I couldn't believe it. I had heard the whispers, the stories in school. They painted her as just another girl who had fallen prey to the darkness seeping through our town. I clicked the article, desperate for answers, but the words blurred together. Every line felt like a noose tightening around my chest. "Mr. Wood," I gasped. "It's Claire. She's one of them." His eyes widened, and an air of urgency enveloped him. "You need to act now. If she's tied to Lucy and the others, finding Claire may be key to saving them all." I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. But where do I go? What do I do? "The locket," he repeated firmly. "It's the anchor. You must find it. It could show you the way to the girls." But where would I even start looking? The thought sent shivers down my spine. The locket felt like a ghost, out of reach and haunting. I glanced again at my phone and reread the article. It mentioned Claire's last known whereabouts, an abandoned house on the outskirts of town. Panic bubbled inside me, mixing with determination. I had to go. I couldn't let fear dictate my actions. "I'll head there," I said resolutely, already imagining the run-down walls of that house. "Be careful. The shadows you face won't just call out for help. They could also pull you in." His voice dropped to a whisper. "You might lose yourself along the way." "Then I'll just have to fight them off," I shot back, trying to convince myself. I shoved my phone into my pocket and rushed out of the coffee shop. The cold air hit me like a slap, snapping me back into reality. The streets were quiet, ghostly still. It couldn't be more than a few minutes to the old house, but in this moment, it felt ominous, like a scene ready to unfold. As I moved closer, the sky darkened, clouds rolled in, casting an eerie shadow over everything. I shivered, my heart racing. I was getting closer to that house, but with every step, the whispers returned, swirling in my mind. "Find us. Save us." Then I saw it. The silhouette of the abandoned house looming at the end of the street. It looked almost alive, breathing with memories trapped within its walls. I hesitated at the gate. The hairs on my neck stood on end, and my stomach knotted again. That's when I saw it. A flicker of light dancing behind a broken window. I took a deep breath, each heartbeat echoing in my ears. I had come too far to turn back now. I pushed the gate open, the rusty hinges creaking like a warning. Before I could step foot inside, a loud crash echoed from within the house. I stumbled back, heart racing faster than ever. I wasn't alone. And whatever, or whoever, was in there, knew I was coming. I hesitated at the threshold, caught between fear and a wild determination. The sound of something heavy slamming against the floorboards rang in my ears. I had to know. The fear twisted in my stomach, but that flicker of light urged me on. I stepped inside, careful of the broken step that splintered under my weight. The air felt charged, thick with dust and memories. Light streamed through the broken window, illuminating shards of glass littered on the floor. I couldn't shake the feeling that eyes were watching me, hidden in the shadows. "Claire?" I called out, my voice quivering. It echoed, swallowed by the emptiness. Silence answered. I moved further in. The house groaned as if protesting my intrusion. A part of me screamed to run, but I pushed ahead. I needed to find that locket. That was the only way to uncover Claire's fate or, God forbid, save her if she was still here. A flicker from the living room caught my attention. I followed the light, the old floorboards creaking under my every step. When I reached the doorway, my breath caught in my throat. The room was filled with candles, their flames dancing, casting a warm glow amid the cold decay. But it wasn't just the candles that struck me. In the center of the room, a figure stood, hunched over something on the floor. They wore a dark cloak, their face hidden. The flickering light revealed nothing but shadows. "Who's there?" I demanded, a mix of anger and fear surging through me. "What are you doing?" The figure turned slowly. The cloak swayed, swirling like smoke caught in a gust of wind. They made no reply, but I sensed that they were aware of my presence. Clenching my fists, I stepped closer. "I'm looking for Claire," I said, conviction pushing through my fear. "You need to help me." "Where is she?" With deliberate slowness, the figure raised a hand and pointed towards the far corner of the room. I glanced over, my heart racing. There, on a dusty table, glimmered something familiar. The locket. I took another step forward. The moment my foot landed, the figure lunged toward me, a rush of darkness swirling around them. I stumbled backward, slamming against the wall. I couldn't breathe. "Stay away!" I shouted, panic overtaking me. The shadows thickened, wrapping around my legs, and in that moment, all the stories I'd heard seemed to flood my mind. As they closed in, I choked out my next words. "I'm not afraid of you." But inside, fear gnawed at me like a hungry beast. The cloaked figure paused, and the shadows receded just a little. "Then you have a choice," they whispered, their voice barely above a hiss. "Choose wisely." Everything went silent. The air felt heavy, offering me only two paths. Take the locket and risk losing myself in this darkness, or turn back and leave Claire behind. I glanced at the locket glimmering in the low light, my decision teetering on a knife's edge. Time was running out. I had to act fast. "Claire!" I yelled, summoning every ounce of courage. "I'm here! I'm coming for you!" But then, just as I reached for the locket, the ground trembled beneath me, and the room spiraled into darkness. I gasped as the darkness enveloped me. I felt weightless, as if I had fallen through a tunnel of endless night. Panic surged through me, and I struggled to make sense of my surroundings, but my vision was swallowed whole. Then, just as abruptly as it had begun, the darkness lifted, depositing me unceremoniously onto cold, hard ground. My breath came back in ragged bursts, and I blinked against the harsh glare of bright light. I was no longer in the living room. I stood in a vast open space, illuminated by an otherworldly radiance. The walls seemed to pulse with energy, shifting colors like the flicker of flames. It was a strange and surreal place, one that felt both familiar and alien. "Where am I?" I whispered to myself, my voice trembling. My heart raced at the sheer impossibility of being pulled from one place to another. A sudden rustle broke the silence behind me. I turned, and there stood the cloaked figure once more, their features still hidden. This time the shadows did not linger at their feet. Instead they flowed like water, twisting and curling around them. "Welcome to the interstice," they said, their voice echoing off walls that seemed to lean in closer, as if straining to hear. "A realm between worlds. It is here that choices are tested and souls are measured." "Why am I here?" I pressed, holding my ground despite the fear clawing at my insides. "What have you done to Claire?" The figure tilted their head, considering me. "Your fear has brought you here, but it is your courage that will decide your fate." They stretched out a hand, palm up, revealing the locket I had reached for. "This is not merely an object. It holds memories. Her memories. To manifest them, you must delve deeper than you ever have before." With each word, the air thickened. I felt a mixture of intrigue and dread. What did they mean? "You said I had a choice. What do I have to do?" The figure's gaze bore into me, challenging yet expectant. "You must confront the shadows that linger in your heart. Only then can you unlock the secrets within this locket." I hesitated, realizing the weight of their words. Shadows. Memories. My heart raced with a mix of reluctance and resolve. What if I refuse? A chilling smile crept across the figure's hidden face. "Then you will leave empty-handed, and Claire's fate will remain a mystery forever." I swallowed hard. I can't let that happen. At that. "Then come," they beckoned, stepping aside to reveal a path through the shimmering light. "But beware. The truth may be more than you are prepared to face." With a deep breath, I stepped forward. The path glowed beneath my feet, urging me onward. I was scared, yes, but the thought of leaving without answers for Claire was unbearable. As I advanced, the light shifted again. Lace-like tendrils began to unravel in front of me, forming images of memories lost. I could see fleeting glimpses, the laughter of a girl, the warmth of a summer day, the shadows that danced just beyond the reach of light. And then everything froze as a piercing scream echoed through the air. It sounded like Claire. My stomach dropped. I needed to get to her before it was too late. I had to face whatever darkness lay ahead. I pressed on, ready to confront the shadows I had long feared. But just as I felt the first hint of clarity emerging from the memories, a wall of darkness surged toward me from behind, threatening to engulf me whole. The darkness rushed forward, swallowing the shimmering light and my resolve. I stumbled back, fighting against the suffocating tendrils, but they wound around me like a vice. My pulse quickened as panic surged within me. I couldn't breathe, I couldn't think. But just as despair threatened to pull me under, a blinding flash erupted from the locket still clutched in my hand. It illuminated the void, pushing back the shadows for a brief moment. I gasped, the darkness receding slightly, granting me a moment's respite. The cloaked figure appeared then, their presence oddly calming against the chaos that surrounded me. "Use it," they commanded, their voice cutting through the clamor. "It is the key." I looked down at the locket, feeling its warmth. I didn't know how anything could be a key to anything, especially not in a place like this. But I had little choice. I focused, trying to recall all the moments I associated with Claire. Each memory that surfaced felt vital, a thread to grasp as I fought against the encroaching darkness. With newfound determination, I opened the locket. The glow brightened again, casting flickering shadows against the walls. Images began to swirl, vivid and alive. Claire on her first day of school, her smile radiant, the two of us laughing over ice cream, us lying on the grass, plotting fantastical adventures. But alongside those warm memories crept darker ones, arguments, mistakes, fears I had buried deep. I winced, and the locket dimmed, the shadows pressing closer. I realized then that I had to face not only the good but the bad as well. I had to confront everything. The walls trembled as if they sensed my indecision. I took a deep breath and shouted into the void, "I'm not afraid, I will face it all." The darkness recoiled momentarily, and I grasped at that flicker of power. The locket surged with light as I leaned into the memories, letting them wash over me. I could see the arguments, but I could also hear the reasons behind them. I felt my guilt transform into understanding. Every ounce of hurt that bubbled up was met with an equal measure of joy. The locket pulsed in response, casting my emotions out into the darkness. For every shadow that threatened to suffocate me, a light blossomed from within, pushing back against despair. Suddenly, another scream cut through the chaos, a cry for help that made my blood run cold. It was Claire. I stumbled, the locket slipping from my grasp and hitting the ground with a metallic clang. The image shattered around me. In that moment, the darkness pressed in tighter, threatening to erase everything I just fought for. I needed to recover it. I needed those memories. They were the only thing tethering me to Claire. As I fought against the shadows, I spotted the locket, glimmering just out of reach, caught in the twisting darkness. That's when I saw it, a figure in the darkness, moving closer. It was not just a shadow, it bore the resemblance of someone I knew. My heart raced as realization struck. I was not alone in this fight. But who were they? And what did they want with me? Before I could process the figure nearing me, my throat tightened. Was it a friend? An enemy? The shadows pulsated around me, seemingly alive, eager to consume everything. "Claire!" I shouted again, desperation lacing my words. I had to get the locket back. I had to hold on to those memories, but the closer the figure stepped, the more familiar it looked. Pale skin and dark hair framed a face that once brought me comfort. "Ryan?" I asked, my voice trembling. He hesitated, his eyes darting between me and the encroaching darkness. "I'm here to help," he finally said. "But you need to trust me." Trust? With shadows wrapping around my legs like creeping vines, I didn't know if I could. But as I watched Ryan advance, the shadows seemed to hesitate, as if he wielded some power over them. "What do we do?" I asked, feeling the weight of fear and uncertainty settle in my chest. "Get the locket," he ordered. "It's the only way to break this hold." In a moment of clarity, I understood. The locket wasn't just a container of memories. It was a vessel of power, strong enough to face the darkness as long as I believed in what it represented. I lunged toward it, reaching for the glimmering surface as shadows clawed at my ankles. "Keep going," Ryan urged. "You can make it." Drawing on every ounce of strength I had left, I propelled myself forward. The darkness thrashed around me, trying to pull me back, but I pressed on. I felt the locket's warmth reach out to me in the overwhelming bleakness. It pulsed like a heartbeat, a promise that I wasn't alone. Just as my fingers brushed the cool metal, a screeching howl filled the air, shaking the ground beneath me. I looked back and noticed the shadows writhing violently, as if something was fighting against Ryan's presence. "Focus!" he called, his voice cutting through the chaos. "You need to unlock the power." I closed my eyes for a second, letting memories wash over me, every cherished moment I'd had with Claire. Focusing on the love we shared, I felt the locket vibrate fiercely in my palm. Suddenly the darkness twisted into grotesque forms, faces of fear and anger emerging from the shadows. I could see the fear in their hollow eyes, a reflection of my own. They were not just my fears, they were my regrets, my insecurities. With determination bubbling inside me, I lifted the locket, feeling the light it contained swell. "You don't control me," I yelled, feeling boldness surge through me. "I choose my memories." The locket erupted into brilliant light, illuminating the void with warmth and color. For an instant, I seemed to step into a sunlit world where none of those dark shapes could reach me. But when I opened my eyes, a deeper darkness loomed. The locket was losing its power. A chilling whisper echoed through the void. "You cannot escape this." It wasn't just a threat. It was a warning. I turned to Ryan, realizing that time was slipping away. "Something is wrong," I said, panic rising again. But before he could respond, the ground beneath us began to tremble. The shadows surged forward, and before I could process my next move, everything went dark again. Would I find my way back, or had the shadows taken me for good? I awoke gasping, sprawled on cold wooden floors like I'd been dumped back into reality. The oppressive darkness receded, leaving behind flickering candlelight. I pushed myself to my feet, heart hammering as I realized I was back in the abandoned house. The cloaked figure was gone, replaced by that familiar flicker of light from the middle of the living room. But I wasn't alone. The locket, once lost amidst shadows, lay gleaming on the dusty table, pulsing softly as if beckoning me to pick it up. Hope sparked within me. Maybe this time it would guide me without interference. I rushed forward and snatched it up, the metal warm against my skin. Memories flooded back, every laugh, every moment shared with Claire. I focused, poured my emotions into the locket, hoping it would empower me as it had before. Just then, I heard a soft voice, the voice of a girl. "Help!" Claire's voice was distant but clear. "Find me." Spurred on by her plea, I opened the locket. Brilliant light erupted, casting an ethereal glow throughout the room. The shadowy corners shrank back as the memories manifested. A swirl of images flashed before my eyes. I could see Claire, laughing in summer sun, her face illuminated by joy. I could hear her voice like a melody, bright and hopeful. "Together, we can break this," I whispered, feeling the locket's power grow around me. I sensed the shadows stirring, but they were weaker now, as if the love for Claire pushed them back. "Remember, they're your fears. Ryan's voice echoed from the shadows, firm and steady. "Remember who you are." With that encouragement, I pressed forward, navigating through the memories to find her. Each moment illuminated my path, guiding me deeper and deeper into the recesses of the house until I found a door I'd never noticed before. I pushed it open and was welcomed by a blinding light, spilling into a vast expanse. The sun shined brighter than I'd ever seen. It felt almost unreal. Running forward, I crossed the threshold into a memory of the park where we used to play. "Claire," I called, searching every inch of the picturesque scenery. Anxiety creased my brow as I called her name again. "Claire." She appeared then, just behind a tree. "You came," she exclaimed, her voice brimming with unrestrained joy. "Of course," I replied, relief flooding through me. "I'm here to save you." But her expression shifted, sadness settling over her like a shroud. "I don't know if that's possible," she whispered. "The shadows, they're stronger than you understand." "No," I said, taking her hands in mine, feeling the warmth of her energy merge with my own. "Together, we will face them, even if it scares us." As I held on, the shadows swirled angrily in the distance, sensing the burgeoning light between us. "You're just a memory," one shrieked, lunging forward. "You cannot change what happened." "No," Claire cried, her voice emboldened. "We can change it. We can break free from this pain." The locket glowed, collecting our newfound courage, and with each heartbeat, the shadows dissipated into wisps. The world around us brightened as the trees and air transformed into newfound life. But then Claire hesitated, pulling away. "Wait, I can't. If I choose to leave, I might become unanchored." Panic twisted in my gut. "What do you mean? You'll be free." "I could be lost to the dark forever. You have to trust me," she pleaded, uncertainty shadowing her eyes. Tears burned my eyes, but I remembered all of the love we'd shared, the joy and laughter and warmth. "We fought so hard for this," I cried. "You deserve peace, Claire. It's time." With resolve, Claire stepped closer, seizing the locket in my hands. "Then together," she whispered before the shadows surged forward once more, thickening around us. "Together," I echoed back, squeezing her palms, feeling her warmth fuse with mine. The locket blazed in our grasp, illuminating the entire expanse as colors exploded into the air. Side by side, we faced the storm of shadows, ready to push back. As brightness consumed us, I caught sight of Ryan's silhouette in the distance, his expression tense yet hopeful. The air trembled, and at that moment it felt like we were both stepping towards something great. The darkness screeched, lunging one final time, desperate to reclaim what it had lost. But we were filled with purpose now, fortified by memories, and as our collective strength surged forth, the light surrounding us erupted. With a heart-stopping flash, a silence filled whatever space remained, and the last strands of darkness dissolved. A breath of fresh air swept over me, and I gasped, finding myself back in the coffee shop, the locket now cold in my hand. I blinked, the beautiful, resonating silence wrapping around me like a safety blanket. A deeper quiet cradled the world around me, welcoming and peaceful. But questions lingered. Had we broken the curse? Would Claire truly be free? Shadows danced at the edges of my thoughts, leaving behind an unease that settled like a weight in my chest. I instinctively turned to the door, wondering if I had left something behind. Would the darkness return, or was this merely a temporary reprieve? Stepping outside into the dusk, the town was unusually still. I noticed the flickering lights at my neighbor's house where whispers still clung to the wind, their presence felt, but never fully seen. I moved toward my car, a chill racing up my spine. I could feel them lingering, the unaddressed history of the town pulling at my thoughts. And even as the shadows faded, the mystery behind them remained, haunting yet compelling. As I closed the car door and made my way out of town, I knew I might never fully escape that weighty darkness. But perhaps, just perhaps, the light would shine through if I learned how to find it. I might never uncover every truth hidden in that town, but I would take that unease and chase down answers, one whispered secret and lock it at a time.